Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Awaken the World. Today we present Awaken Sunday Live Q&A, The Darkness Within and Ego Writ Large. A no-holds-barred look at civilization. Ha, what a joke. Hello, Jennifer. How are you? Kelly apparently has her tiger tea. It's an Indian spice tea, actually, that we really enjoy. Typically add a little bit of milk and sugar to it. It's really, really good tea, actually. Yeah, I got used to it over to India, drank it all the time. Love it here. So, oh yeah. Way to go, Kelly. It's too far away from Christmas yet, although it's coming really fast. So today we have some of the nastier subjects to talk about, and this is important actually because we get way too caught up in all of it, and I do too. You know, there's times when the frustration just takes me past any level of awakening I have, and I am frustrated with the human race, frustrated with the way we choose to behave. And that's probably the biggest thing. It really comes down to that we don't have to behave the way we're choosing to behave, and yet we do over and over again. You know, the sleeping masses by the multitudes are not even aware that this crazy system we've designed on this planet isn't even real, that the money isn't even real, that our entire way of life isn't even real. And we see this manifest all over the place. But we're going to start with the darkness. And, you know, when we're talking about the darkness, what are we really talking about? Well, we're talking about that side of ourselves we don't like to get in touch with. That actionable side. You know, you remember the little devil? He's back there on the counter somewhere. You can kind of see him in the distance. And if you look really closely, you'll say he's boogieing way back there. He's just boogieing away. He's bouncing up and down and having a great time. And over my other shoulder, well, you can't really see it, but the angel's back there too by the window in the plants, and that angel's almost asleep. And this is pretty much where our state of mind comes into. And what is this darkness in truth? It is the collective subconscious, the collective unconscious mind of all of humanity. And our own subconsciousness, our own unconscious mind consists of one half of that. And that is the dark. That is the collective suffering that we have wreaked upon each other since the dawn of time through our misunderstandings and our miscommunications and our misinterpretations of our existence here. And that darkness will come out. It does all the time. That collective mind is filled with thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years of darkness, terror, fear, torture, and pain. And that is the collective pain body of the entire human race, as Eckhart Tolle would put it. The pain body, that energetic emanation of all the negativity within our being, we have one of those at a collective level. And that pain body subsumes, consumes, and lies over the entire planet like a shroud of darkness under which we live. So is it any wonder why we see the behaviors we see? You know, one just has to look at the news, and I caution you, don't look at the news for very long. Because only one of two things are going to happen. One, you're going to become very depressed and want to put a bullet in your own head. Or you're going to become very angry and want to put a bullet in someone else's head. Neither one of those are a good thing. They're really not. And believe me, as an ex-sniper and soldier, I really fight to stay away from those sort of things. You know, when you're having that many problems, it can appear really easy to deal with it with finality. But in that, we open ourselves to just more pain, more suffering. Within this collective mind, within this darkness that we all have, okay, we have all these archetypes and archetypical behavior. And this is what we're seeing running rampant in our world today. And I'm going to give you an example of a very simple archetype to start with, okay? The very simple archetype is that of a child who does not perceive they receive the love they deserved from their parents. And I see this one all the time. And this, believe it or not, is an archetypical behavior. It's an archetypical mindset. It doesn't actually belong to the individual. It belongs to the collective. Every single person who's ever experienced just a little bit of conscious awakening will understand that in that simple archetype that we somehow should be expecting, and that our parents are bound to love us and provide for us and all these things, it's simply not true. And we will find that it is our reactions to all of these sort of things that are going on in the darkness within us that end up leaking out into our physical world and into our interactions with others, to the point where we begin to create these subconscious demons. And these subconscious demons, I still struggle with my own. You know, there will be times where one of the faces burned in my mind from my past, either someone that I watched be killed or someone that I had to kill while looking at them through the sniper scope, will pop up into my mind. And those are those subconscious demons, those things which we have not fully put to rest. And we are not capable as individuals in fully understanding that that subconscious darkness is a collective darkness. It is the darkness represented within us all. You know, in Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, he talks about this underlying base unhappiness that the vast majority of the human race faces every day. It lies just out of sight, you know, subtly spoiling the day, subtly spoiling your interactions, taking control over our reactions. And this unconscious pain body, this feeling of underlying angst, is directly related to these subconscious demons we all carry around, okay? It is a global phenomena. Not one human being is exempt from it. And it's really easy when people are out in the public eye. You know, Kelly actually used to be quite famous for this. She was really good at faking it. So no one would know what was going on behind the doors of her house. But boy, did things look pretty on the outside. And this is where most of us are. You know, no one really knows what goes on behind the door of our masks that we wear. Right? We're all keeping our faces covered with these masks that hide what's truly going on within us. Personally, I ripped mine off a long time ago, and I encourage you to rip them off as well. Be open. Be raw if you have to. But whatever you do, be real. Because there's only one way to get by that subconscious darkness, that collective subconscious mind that is filled with all that pain and all that misery that humanity has inflicted upon itself for eons. And the only possible way to do that is through your own direct awareness and your own unwillingness to hide from yourself. You see, all those things hide in the dark. They hide in the dark little recesses and crevices of our mind. They hide in the shadows. They hide underneath rocks and in the corners where you can't see. And only the light of your awareness can never find its way in there. But as long as you're wearing a mask of any sort, you are still wrapped up in that darkness. I'm not kidding you. As I said, I'm not really out to make any friends with this one. As a matter of fact, I'm never out to make friends. I'm out to speak the truth as I understand it. I'm out to share my wisdom and my experience in the hopes that it may somehow ease your journey in some way, make your path that much clearer. Some of this is going to hurt. You know, we have so many subconscious demons that they lend themselves in certain circumstances to physical manifestations. And Kelly's been witness to this herself, and so have I. The unconscious mind and that collective darkness is the collective mind of all humanity. It is immensely powerful. It is part of the collective that is shaping our planet today. Your mind, my mind, all of our minds, on top of that damaged, painful darkness, the collective of humanity. The collective subconscious mind that contains all the terror that we have instilled in our fellow brothers and sisters, all the pain we wreak on each other day to day. You know, I read an article today about a group in the States, and they use the word prayer in their name, and they're essentially a neo-Nazi skinhead group. You know, we have come to the point where we have allowed this darkness, this collective subconsciousness, to leak out into every aspect of our society. And all as we do day to day to day is fight the symptoms of it. We do that at a government level, and that is the first level of hell that must be abolished. Okay, case in point, I am dealing with it on behalf of Kelly, okay, because I understand a little more about what's actually going on. But, you know, our government and the Canadian Revenue Tax Agency, and you guys in the States have your own problems with your own tax agency. Now, anyone who doesn't say that our God in this world is a God of money, wake up. You have government agencies designed to go out there and collect that money. You have a force that's willing to strip you of your rights, strip you of your resources, and even strip you of your freedom in exchange for you not paying that money. And in the case of Kelly, who would never lie or steal or take anything from anybody, I know this woman. Okay, the Canada Revenue Agency has gone ahead and summarily judged her as a tax fraud without any due process at all. And I spent the morning reading through all the things that she has a right to under the Tax Act. And you know what? No matter what they say in those documents, they break every word of them and no one cares. It happens nonstop all the time. We are the ones who suffer from the collective subconscious darkness of the human mind. Every single one of us are suffering because of it in some way. No matter how awake you may appear to be, no matter how enlightened you may appear to be, you at your base level are suffering due to that collective darkness. And that collective darkness is not only there, it is growing in leaps and in bounds as we continue to treat each other separate from each other. You know, one of our dear friends, and again, you know, she was right in what she said, but there's something underlying it that we need to look at, and we're going to talk about that right away here, and it is in regards to the separation that we tend to do because of this. Thank you, Jennifer. You know, it's really obvious, actually, once you open your eyes and look around, you can see it, how the idea of democracy and freedom are just that. They're ideas. You really think you're free? You really think you're living in a democratic place? I got big news for you. There isn't a place on this planet that is free anymore. Freedom does not exist for the human race. We have allowed and we have participated in and we have helped to build a system of enslavement that has enslaved every member of the human race since as far back as we built our first brick. That's the reality of it. That's where we are as a species. It's time to take the gloves off, okay? No more joking around. You can't look at a single act of humanity and say that we have any humanity. And I don't care what country goes out and provides aid for 30,000 or 50,000 or 100,000 people. Because guess what? We all put them there to start with. Why is it that we need to send billions upon billions of dollars to aid countries in the Middle East? Because we keep blowing it up. You know, I lived in the Middle East a long time. I fought in the Middle East. I prayed and meditated in the Middle East. I killed people in the Middle East. And I found salvation in the Middle East. Do you honestly believe in your heart that there's a single person over there who really poses a threat to our way of life? Really? You really believe that, do you? I sure hope not. Because if you buy into that tripe, you're just as unconscious and sleeping as the rest of them. That's not a judgment. It's an observation. There's a profound difference in that. And we really need to look at the difference between that judgment and observation, and we're going to. But I want to cover off physical manifestations because this really comes down to it, okay? Our mind, our singular mind, i.e. the mind of Garhen, or the mind of that which would call itself Garhen, okay, that collective ego memory construct, is immensely powerful. The mind of Kelly, the mind of Jennifer, the mind of Jackie, the mind of Cindy, the mind of Fred, Joe, Richard, all incredibly powerful. But we are standing up against the collective darkness of all of humanity. And that darkness has grown. Even since the time of Gandhi, since the time of Christ, since the time of Buddha, that darkness has expanded. The suffering and torture and pain and humiliation that we put on each other in the name of false gods, in the name of money, in the name of our belief systems is sitting there like a raw, green, seething mucus ball surrounding our planet. And we are all drowning in it. It's time to wake up. And we don't need just one to wake up. There is only one way to get by this collective darkness that we all carry, and that is through awareness, personal awareness, and raising the awareness of others. It isn't enough to do it just for you. You are an immense, powerful spiritual being. We are also surrounded by 7.5 billion other immense, powerful spiritual beings, most who are blissfully, not so blissfully, painfully unaware of it. And we put profit as an excuse before people. We have designed a system where corporations have to, by law, rape and pillage. Any person who's made it to the top rung has done so by stepping on every other person underneath them. And we glorify that. All I've seen on the news is look at Apple. It's the first $1 trillion valued company. You know what I got to say to that? Please excuse the French. It's about time. Who gives a flying fuck about what company is worth $1 trillion? I'm more interested in what country can feed every one of its people. I'm more interested in what community makes sure everyone has housing. Until we can see each other in each other, we are doomed. We are doomed as a species. I didn't say it was going to be pleasant this morning. And for those who have a little bit of trouble with this, I'm really sorry. But it's about time you got the message, okay? And Kelly has made a good point. You know, the first time when I first met Kelly, she told me about her mother-in-law and how she was a really gentle, nice person. And the first thing I ever saw from her was a text message damning and demeaning Muslims and exhorting all Christians to be on guard because the Muslims were coming to get them one way or the other. And our friend fell into the same line yesterday, you know, and it wasn't that she was coming from a bad place. And this is where we talk about some systemic methods of control, and those are going to come up later. But one of the things that she had said was, I'm sure glad I'm Canadian. You know, she had just come back from the States. She says, you know, those people down there are kind of crazy. And you know, I said to her, well, whoa, wait a minute. They've been programmed that way. We've been programmed this way. And that happens unconsciously. The same people across the border are the same people living here. They are not Canadians. They are not Americans. They are not the Chinese. They are not the North Koreans. They are not the Russians. They are the children of God. Every last one of them. Every one of them. The only difference is how long you got cooked in the goddamn oven. If you're white, you came out too soon. If you're black, you came out too late. If you're Asian, you came out somewhere in the middle. That's it. There are no separate races in our planet. It's all environmental. If you were born into an area where the sun has been shining nonstop for the last 50,000 years, you're going to have dark skin. Why? So you can live and survive. If you're born in an area more northern where you see less light, you're going to have light skin and probably more hair. We've already proven all these things are environmental, and yet we and religion and governments would have you convinced on every level that there is something that defines you differently from your neighbor. And it doesn't matter whether the neighbor lives across the street, down the road, in the next town, or in the next country, you have been convinced that they're somehow different. I got news for you. Every person on this planet bleeds red. All of them. Every mother wants their child to grow up. Every family wants a safe place to live. Every mouth wants food in it. I've been sitting here talking for 20 minutes. Do you know how many children have starved to death in the 20 minutes I've been talking? Do you have any concept of the 40,000 children a day that die from starvation? I'm not even talking about the adults and the old folks. I'm only talking about the children. If you're sitting watching this video right now and you have kids, I want you to take a look at one of your kids and imagine them dying of starvation and tell me why it's acceptable for any of us to allow it to continue anymore. We, and it's all of us, myself included. Just because you proclaim to have a little bit of awakening, that doesn't take away your responsibility for this mess. It took us all to get here. The good news is it doesn't take us all to get away from here. And we're going to talk about that too. We, society, are profoundly sick. We are sick on every level imaginable. You know, and I don't give a rat's about the people who are going to sit there and say, well, our longevity, our lifespan is higher than ever. Sure it is. For those in the developed world. You know, I'm going to bring up a point about this, okay? August 1st was the World Crossover Day. That was the day when we had used up the entire resources of the planet for 1 year. 7 months in to 2018, and we have used up every last resource on the planet for the entire year. The Earth cannot sustain this. Now, get ready for the real news. If you're living in Canada or the United States, our crossover date for using all the world's resources up for the calendar year is March. January, February, March. We use an entire planet's worth of resources based on our population in North America inside of 3 months. What should last us a year, we used up in 3 months. We are sick. We are sick at an egoic level, and this is the thing. It is ego writ large. If you still believe you are your name, if you still believe the entity you see in the mirror every day is what you really are, you got to start moving past that. The collective consciousness of the human race is twisted and full of darkness and pain. And we wreak that pain upon others on a daily basis. Observation versus judgment. And this is important because I got to tell you, today I feel more like a Baptist preacher and I am full of judgment. I really am. I apologize, okay? But I'm in a mood today, and I've been in a mood for the last few days. And the reason I've been in a mood is I am sick. I am sick in my heart. And sick in my gut of the way we treat each other. You know, I put out a post the other day that it doesn't matter to me what God you profess that you worship, what God you profess you believe in, or what you believe in. The first thing and the only thing that ultimately matters is the God of money on this planet. You know, we totally blew it. We misunderstood when we were told, don't have any other false idols. That had nothing to do with an insecure God warning us not to worship other gods. That was a warning from a very secure, loving Creator saying, you know what? If you put another idol up as the first thing you're going to seek, it's going to cause you problems. Honey, can I have some Kleenex, please? This was the purpose of that. The idol, the false god that we built was that golden calf. It was the... Oh, thanks. That's enough to maybe do a nostril. Can I have a bunch, please? Thank you. Yes. There's nothing like being handed a single square when you ask for some Kleenex. Like, what am I going to do with this? Thank you. I think paper, is expensive. Excuse me for a minute. I do apologize about that. We installed the god of money thousands of years ago. And that god has only grown more and more powerful, and we have all come to worship that god in every way imaginable, to the point that at that god's whim, we sacrifice untold numbers of people. We sacrifice 40,000 children a day to that god of money. You want to talk about blood sacrifice? We are nothing but a backwards, bloodthirsty, sacrificial, afraid of everything, worshiping a false god of money, an idol to which we will perpetrate the worst evils against each other so that we can have more of that. Sit on that for a while. And don't sit there and tell me that those 40,000 children aren't dying because of money. They are dying because of money. And it doesn't matter whether they die of starvation or we just take them and slit their throats and gore out their hearts on an altar and hand it over. Slitting their throats would be a lot less painful for them. You know what? I have been there. I have buried children. I have spent time in Ethiopia and other places in the world where I have buried children every damn day. Children who had died of disease. Children who had died of starvation. As I watched the people in the UN tents opening coolers and pulling out food that you can only get around here in North America, and being gluttons right next door to people who are dying. And all of these countries, Canada included, we all make such a big deal. We got to put on advertisements. We got to announce it to the world. Oh, we're providing so-and-so with $50 million worth of aid. You mean the government is taking the money from the people and giving that money to another corporation over there? And maybe a little tiny trickle gets down to the average person. But that $50 million of aid is eclipsed by the hundreds of millions of dollars of damage and environmental destruction and life destruction. You know, we've been shipping our dirty plastics to China for decades. Most people are blissfully unaware of this. Where women and children and families go through dirty plastics, plastics with poison, plastics with things that can give you cancer and cause skin conditions and all sorts of diseases. And that is our trash. We have an ocean that by the year 2050 will contain more plastic than it will fish. Plastic comes out of your tap. If you're on a municipal or city water supply, you are drinking microplastic particles. We are crazy. We are off our rocker in every possible way. And it is time to take a stand. It is time to end this once and for all. It is time to stop this. before stopping it becomes the job of a higher power. And when I speak about that higher power, I'm talking about the planet itself. You know, she dealt with the dinosaurs. She can deal with us too. As a matter of fact, we have been dealt with over and over and over again, and we're coming to a time now where the dealing is going to equate to a whole ton more of suffering. And Kelly says, and yet it seems like so few see this. It's not, and I want to make this perfectly clear. If you're ignorant of any of these facts today, you are ignorant by choice. It's not like you can't go out there and find out the true state of the world, the true state of the peoples on the planet. How many of us actually get a decent diet? How many of us truly have access to services that are going to help us out? I am in a judgmental frame of mind today, and I am not judging the individuals. I am judging the collective called humanity. My judgment falls on me as well, since I've chosen to incarnate in this particular form. I'm just as culpable as you are. But you notice how we always like to find other people to blame for it. Well, it's not my fault. I'm not over in Africa. I'm not withholding food from them. Our actions withhold food from them. Our silence withholds food, medicine. Even in this first world country we live in called Canada, we have over 1 million homeless people. Over 1 million that are homeless. And yet we sit there and we celebrate Canada Day, and we celebrate, the 4th of July, Independence Day, and we celebrate all these holidays. Why? Do we actually have anything to celebrate? I mean, really, the only thing we can honestly, truthfully celebrate when we take all the bullshit off is that, boy, I'm sure lucky I'm here. And that's really the only celebration we have. Observation versus judgment. Observation allows for a way forward. Judgment does not. I'm skirting the line between the two. Flipping back and forth on either side of it, okay? There is a way forward. Our separatist behavior has to end. And the only way that's going to end is we have to realize the systemic control at every level, from language manipulation to media. And, let's be perfectly clear. You guys brought Donald Trump upon yourself in the same way that we brought Justin Trudeau on ourselves, okay? We have all sold ourselves out to the concept that we need to appoint a leader. What have these leaders done? These leaders take us to war and make sure that our young are killed in battle. You'll never see a Donald Trump or a Justin Trudeau standing dressed in battle gear with a weapon in their hands. Why? Because they'd rather send you and your children to die than to send themselves. And we can make all sorts of excuses about it, okay? We can make every excuse on the planet. But I got to tell you, as a guy who lived for a quarter of a century in war, and I'm not talking about working in an office, I'm talking about 15 years straight in the field. When I added up all my field time, I spent 15 years of my life in active theaters of combat. And all of that experience has taught me one thing and one thing only. None of it needed to happen. There wasn't a single war we fought that was for the reasons we were told it was. There was not a single person who needed to be killed. There was not a single person who was bent on coming all the way over here and getting up in my face in front of my house. As a matter of fact, they were all wondering what I was doing up in their face in front of their house, half a world away. We are controlled at every level, and it begins with language. It really does. We don't understand how much our language is part of that power and control structure, okay? Every time we use words like immigrant, every time we use words like Canadian or American, you know, Trump selling this buy American and Trudeau selling buy Canadian in response. You know, I got news for you. There's no such thing. Canada is a name we slapped on a big chunk of land. That's it. The people living here, while it was still called Canada before it actually became Canada, were not Canadians. They were just people. And we are all people. And we are all being programmed subtly and not so subtly. Anytime we fail to understand, you know, around Vernon, it's the homeless. There's a really big problem with that. As soon as we stop saying people who are homeless, our fellow brothers and sisters that live in the U.S., our fellow brothers and sisters that live in Canada, the minute we convert children of the same creator to any other label, whether it be immigrant or Mexican or criminal or homeless or gay or transgender or Christian or Muslim, we've lost. We've lost ourselves. And more importantly, we've lost the ability to empathize because they're no longer people. You see, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, as soon as you label someone an immigrant, in your egoic mind, that is no longer a human being. And the idea that you would separate women and children and families because they're an immigrant could only happen when we cease to see them as human beings. We are manipulated on every level. We are manipulated at a financial level through this false system of control that we call the money system, the economic system. We are manipulated through language, first and foremost. Please watch this ever so closely. Anytime anyone tries to convince you of anything that makes somebody else different. And, you know, we're not talking about beliefs, okay? The best thing you could do is drop all your beliefs. Drop them all. There's a lot of people sitting right now who believe that dark-skinned people are bad in some way. And as ridiculous as it seems, those numbers are huge. I would challenge you to go and find out for yourself. And if you think the politicians you've elected and the people that you've put in power are going to truly care for you when it comes down to the wire, I have a sad reality for you to face. The only thing people in power care about is power. It's the only thing they care about. I've been offered positions of power my entire life, and I have refused those positions of power at every turn. And the reason being is I know that even in my desire to use that power correctly, we are not responsible creators enough yet to be handed power. And that's what we do when we make these so-called world leaders. These are not world leaders. These are the people who are responsible for the destruction of the planet. And I got news for you. The vast majority of them are male. We have dominated this patriarchal society for thousands of years now, and our destructive ways as that masculine energy not tempered by the feminine have brought this planet to the brink where, despite as much as she may try, she will not be able to support us on her for much longer. And you know what? As I'm sitting here today, good riddance to all of us. We're like a virus. And again, I am not speaking to the truth of what we are. I am speaking to what the majority of us believe we are, and that is the big part of the problem. Media. You know, I was showing Kelly the other day how the advertisements that are coming up are geared towards the degradation of women, the sexual conquest by men, and war, and linking violence and the degradation of women and sexual conquest and war all together. And it's happening at such a young age now that the average child playing a video game at 10 years old is exposed to far more violence than we were in a 25-year period. And we wonder why we have what we have. "1,300 people overdosed in British Columbia last month. Sorry, 1,800. 1,800 people overdosed. Now, are we supposed to believe that people walk out there and say, hey, you know, today I'd like to become a drug addict? There's not a single person using drugs today who's addicted to them that decided to be an addict. We are a world of symptom fighters, and we are the problem. And we keep blaming the problem on the symptoms we see around us and going out there and fighting those symptoms. Another case in point, the homeless in Vernon. There's 70 plus trailers that are supposed to be used for living accommodations that have been sitting there for 6 months or better with no place to put them and not a single soul living in them, as the city of Vernon enacts draconian bylaws and hires more bylaw officers and police officers to deal with the problem. And the problem is called the homeless. Well, guess what, people? We are all a day away from homelessness. I don't care how much money you think you have or how secure you think you are 24 hours away from the street. Thank you, Jennifer. Sometimes we need a in your face reminder about the reality of where we're at, and because of my existence and the level of consciousness I'm at, I'm still prone to lose it. It doesn't happen as often, but it happens. And I'm really trying to hold back. I really am. There's a big part of me that suffers when I look at the suffering going on. And a big part of me that gets really frustrated. And I know in my heart of hearts that ultimately everything is just as it needs to be. I know that. But looking around and seeing the perceived suffering going on and knowing we don't have to do this anymore, that's what really gets me. You see, 100 years ago, we didn't have the technology to look after everybody. We didn't. That's a given. Our planet has been booming in population. And this world has the resources to care for every last one of us if we would only take what we truly need. We are the gluttons of the planet. North America. Don't believe me. Go look at the statistics. Go look at the research. We represent a fraction of the world's population. Some 500 million people or so. 1/16, 1/15 of the whole planet. And yet we consume 35% of the world's resources. And we do it all inside of 3 months. Enough good, fresh food thrown away to feed 50,000 families every day. Every day. Not 40,000 children, 50,000 families, 200,000 plus people on what we chuck out that's healthy and good. I'm not even talking about the stuff that we let go to waste. That is another scary picture. We're like a disease. And yeah, that disease is ego. And as long as you're wrapped up in your ego, you're part of the problem, not part of the solution. As long as you're still dreaming the unconscious dream, as long as you're still buying into this illusion, you are perpetrating the problem. Now again, I have to be clear. This will go on until it doesn't need to go on anymore. We will continue to behave in this way until we finally learn, and thank God that sea of consciousness will make everything right. But we have a choice. We can't blame it on God. We can't blame it on some people half a world away. There is no blame, but there is responsibility, and that responsibility is right in the mirror. Right in front of our own faces is the responsibility. Every day, the choices we make, the times we decide not to speak up, the times when we allow things to go by us that we know we should not because we're afraid of what's going to happen, or those are the things. Those are the places we sell out pain. We sell out suffering. We give out a life that none of us would want to so many, so that we can have the life we think we want. And what do we get for that? We get massive dysfunction. We get drug use, Alcohol use on the rise. People shooting each other in the streets, for God's sake. And it's spilling all over Canada too. It's not like we're not immune up here. There's alarm bells going off through the whole human race. No one understands why yet. It's coming. We can't be separate from nature. Just like a deer understands and leaves before an earthquake, deep inside us, we know that something really bad is coming down the pipe. And it's going to be bad for a lot of humanity. And you know what? It terrorizes us at our core, but we are unaware of it. And so instead, it bleeds out in massive dysfunction based around the way we choose to live. We choose to live our lives. Over and over and over again. To the point where who knows what you believe anymore. We can't trust our leaders. We have people coming right out and saying it on public television. Well, you know, politicians are expected to lie, and everyone just agrees with that. If we're going to continue to elect sleeping psychopathic maniacs to office, and I don't care whether it's the in-your-face ones like Donald Trump or the quiet ones like Justin Trudeau, we are doomed. You know, rather than switching to safe energy and safe energy technologies, we're buying more pipelines. We're building more pipelines. Finding more ways to move coal and oil around the planet. Why? Because it's part of that system of power and control. You know, in Canada, our gas prices, even around here, approached the equivalent of about $5.60 a gallon. I'm not kidding you. $1.40 something a liter here. On the coast, upwards of $1.60. Over $6 a gallon for fuel. And you know what that does? That limits people. It limits their freedoms. It limits their ability to get out of the city. We're setting ourselves up. We are being set up at a massive scale, and we are being set up by a power and control structure of elite, wealthy people who somehow think that that money is going to save their ass. But I'll tell you something, okay? They are suffering too, because no matter what is wrong with their egoic sense of selves that would allow them to crave money and power over all else, they have that other piece of them in them, and it's eating them alive. That's why you have insanely rich people doing insanely crazy things and then killing themselves off. And if this video should ever get to any of those insane people, part of that power and control structure, you know, yeah, I am a person you're going to have to watch for. Because I will speak about this until you muzzle me through death. What are you going to do when there are no more sleeping people willing to do your dirty work? What are you going to do when there is no more safe place to live on this planet? Because I got news for you. No matter how big you make your walls, no matter how many guns and tanks and bombs you hide behind, you will never stop the wave of humanity that is going to come for you one day, and it will. We have choice. We can choose to be civilized. And you know, right now, civilization, I mean, give me a break. We're about as far from civilization as you can get, okay? I gotta tell you, I've been to many planets inhabited in this universe over many, many lifetimes. And this is, you know, Planet of the Apes, mild compared to humans. Seriously. We're not even near civilized. Sabs, spiritually aware beings, that this is what happens when you start to become civilized, okay? You become spiritually aware. You become aware that you are more than just that sense of I in your head. As a matter of fact, you become aware that you are something much greater than that. And in that, you begin to exhibit certain characteristics. In a highly advanced society populated by spiritually aware beings, by sabs, okay, you would never consider ownership as being the truth of things because you understand that it's actually impossible to own anything. You would instead understand stewardship. Now, I just want you to look at this for a second. Imagine a world where you understood you owned nothing and that the actual mindset was, it's all stewardship. You improve upon it. Every place you went to move into would be getting better. And when you moved into it, you would make it better. You would improve upon it. You would bring your own improvements, your own flavor to it. And then that would be passed on to someone else, and they would continue that. I got to tell you something, it wouldn't take now, if we had that attitude across the whole planet, we would live in paradise. The Eden would return within a calendar year. But we think we own things. You can't own anything. The most you can ever have is a very short-term lease, and it's called your life. Really? Anyone want all my stuff? Come and take it. I don't really care. You want it that bad? You think it's going to benefit you? Come and take it from me. I don't need it. I don't own it anyways. That sea of consciousness owns everything. Not mine, but thine. All of it belongs to that sea of consciousness. Who the hell do we think we are building fences between each other? Standing with a shotgun at the edge of the road and saying, nope, this is my road. You come across this and I'm going to kill you. Who gave you that road? Did God come down here and hand that road to you? Because I've got news for you. I don't see that sea of consciousness on any bill of sale, on any land receipt, anywhere. Do I see God saying, I'll give this to you? And the bullshit in the Bible that man was given dominion, there wasn't even such a word. The word, let's be clear, is stewardship. The Master's going to ask for an accounting of our time here within this relative world. And we're going to give our own accounting, and we're going to judge ourselves because the Master will not judge us. Our societal behavior, as spiritually aware beings, as sabs, we would behave in society much differently. We would never accept a society that puts some sort of false financial money god in front of life. We would never allow another child of the Creator whom God loves just as much to suffer in exchange for the dollars in our bank account. And let's be clear, if you're religious, okay? I don't give a rat's ass about which religion you proclaim to belong to. Any religion that would say someone from another faith or someone who doesn't believe doesn't deserve, you know, you're going to make your own hell. That's all I can say. You are going to make your own hell. Hell doesn't exist, but you're going to make your own. And you're going to live in it. We fool ourselves. Before we kick ourselves collectively straight into a hell of our own making, okay? And that we can't blame anyone for that, okay? We can't even blame the power and control structure. We're the ones who keep buying into it. We need to start moving as a whole. We need to unite every spiritual, open-minded community together, and we need to do it now. Not tomorrow, not next year, not in 6 years, not in 10 years, but now. It only takes 500 million people to wake up an entire planet. 500 million of us spread across the globe, all focused at the same time for a prolonged period of time. One day would do it. And we could drag the entirety of the rest of the sleeping masses of humanity forward consciously. We talked about Earth Overshoot Day. August 1st. The world's in trouble. Every day after August 1st, we're using next year's resources, which haven't even been replenished by the planet yet. We are digging so deep into the earth now that if we were ever to have massive power failures across the globe, we may send ourselves right back to the Stone Age because we will not be able to dig deep enough to get any new materials out. We've taken them all. Global warming. Half the world is on fire right now. Half the planet is on fire. You know, when you look at the 30% of the landmass that's left, and you look at all the fires out there, you know, except for the deep mountain ranges, half the planet is in flames. Cities are reporting heat waves like never before. Places like Lisbon and Portugal and Spain running temperatures into the high 40s. People dying. Just because it's too hot. And they have no cool place to go. We say global warming's a myth, and yet tens of millions of people have already been displaced. The Sahel region in Africa, and this isn't new news, this is old news, 30 plus million people. Literally having to get up, take what they can carry, and move some 500-600 kilometers away in the hopes of being able to grow food again. Can you imagine the entirety of Canada walking through the border into the U.S.? Every man, woman, and child, without their vehicles, without any other sort of support or transportation, just by their own feet and some buggies and some non-motorized support. 30-some-odd million Canadians walking into the States and saying, well, we can't live in our country anymore. There's no way to grow food, so we want to come here. What do you think the response would be? Hell, I see disgusting articles written by people over a couple thousand immigrants, or even 100,000 immigrants. You see, as long as we keep going this way, what's going to happen is we are going to have a giant mass of angry, hungry, scared, at the end of the rope people on this planet. And when that happens, all hell will break loose. And it will be a hell of our own making. Reality, as we would assume, is going to disappear soon. It's already starting to disappear for so many people. And we sit and we watch and we allow. And we do so because we don't see how it's impacting us right now. We don't understand that in marginalizing anyone on this planet, we set ourselves up to be marginalized next. You know, Kelly and I are both aging. I am 58 years old. In another 7 years, I'm going to become part of one of the most marginalized group that we have in the modern world, and that is our senior citizens. Every day there's news reports about seniors in private nursing homes and government-run facilities that are subject to abuse. Is that the way we should be treating our elders? You know, it's no wonder that the First Nations communities look upon the white man and what the hell is wrong with those people? We don't respect our elders. We don't learn from our elders. We throw our elders in a box. And we assign other people to care for them. And we show up on holidays if they're fortunate, if we show up at all. The number of shut-ins I've met who have been in nursing homes for months and months and months and never see their families. Is this what we've come to? Is this all there is for humanity? The never-ending search for the almighty God of money? And as long as I have and you don't, then I don't care about you because I have and you don't. And when I don't have, what then? We have more police than ever before, more bylaw enforcement than ever before, more violent prisons than ever before, and not a single leader in the modern world has enough intelligence to look at any of this and say, there's a problem. And I'm sorry, but I'm seeing this in our so-called spiritual leadership on this planet too. You know, come down to the Chopra Center. It's only going to cost you $2,500 for a week. Go see Eckhart Tolle in Hawaii, you know. Or Esther Hicks on a cruise, $10,000. Who affords this? One of the reasons I started Awaken the World, one of the reasons that we do this is because this stuff has to be available for everybody. And it can't be at cost. It has to be freely given from one soul to another. Since when do we put dollar signs behind conscious raising, behind enlightenment, behind spirituality, behind growth? And I've heard all the excuses. Well, I've got staff to pay for, and I have things to produce, and you know what? With a little bit of work, you can do most of it yourself. Kelly and I seem to manage to pull it off. I mean, no, they're not world class productions. I grant you that, but they're sufficient. You can hear my voice and you can see my face, and you're getting the point, hopefully. And you're free to communicate with me at any time. You're free to bring what you are to me and say, help me, give me some advice. Pass me on some of what you've experienced. Or, this is what I'm going through. What do you think about it? You see, those are the things, and those are the only things that define us as human. That's it. And I'm not talking about doing favors for people. I'm not talking about quid pro quo, trading one thing for another. I'm talking about looking at you and seeing me in you and choosing to help you because I understand that you are me and I am you. Until we can see God in everyone's eyes, we truly are lost little children with really big, dangerous, sharp toys. And no one around to tell us otherwise. This is, a tough video. I have to let go of a part of myself to do this. I have to dive deeper into the egoic self. Because, of course, the higher self sees beyond this. And I know from experience that in truth, there is really no suffering at that sea of consciousness level. And that I have been here over and over again, and I will continue to come here for as long as this planet is viable. But we have a choice. The fact that things are made perfect does not, and I repeat this, does not preclude us recognizing that which is not serving humanity and doing something about it. That is part of our conscious awakening, is understanding what we do to ourselves and what we do to each other and choosing to stop. Please. We all fight the dark. And the reason we fight the dark is we don't understand what the dark really is. The dark is there showing us where we still have to go. What we still haven't dealt with yet as a collective, as a species. You know, there are times when I sit, well, I don't sit actually, Kelly and I stand at the table. We have an island and we both like eating standing up. So we eat standing up. So there's times I stand at the table and I don't even want the food on my plate because all I can think of is the number of people who are going to starve while I eat. It's a scary number. The number of people, the number of children who will die during one of our meals. And there are some days I can't get that out of my head. And I don't even try. It's a reminder of how grateful I am in so many ways. Reality, as we would assume, this elusive Maya, is not being controlled by the Creator. What we do here is up to us. That's part of the point. We're all learning to become conscious creators. We're all in school to become that sea of consciousness in full conscious waking reality. What are you consciously creating? What are you unconsciously creating? What are you supporting, intentionally or unintentionally? What are you speaking out for? Don't speak out against. It just keeps those things we don't want alive longer. It lends them energy. But you can and must speak out for things. Speak out for those who cannot speak for themselves. Speak out for the people who cannot understand the documents they are handed. Speak out for the ones we would judge as less than ourselves, because they don't have on the level that we have. The things we venerate and celebrate in our societies mean nothing. And who do we see in our history books? Who is it? Who are the people of note? They are the people who go the opposite direction. They're the people like Gandhi, the people like Buddha, the people like Christ, like Satya Sai Baba. The list goes on, who look and say, no, not on my watch. There's a different path. And anyone who thought Christ was mamby-pamby, full of compassion and love for everybody, I got news for you. He had a dark side to himself too, and it came out. We all do. The dark side isn't a bad side of yourself. It is part of that collective darkness that is part of the human condition. It is the collective of humanity, and we can change it. We can stop it. We can end it at any time. That's it. That's all I have today. And I do apologize as if I bruised some egos and excuse the little bit of bad language, but there's days when we just have to look at what we're doing and really take the gloves off with ourselves and really look ourselves hard in the eye and say, what are we doing? And it's easy to point fingers, but we have to learn to point it at ourselves and really ask the question, what am I doing? What am I representing? What am I being today in relation to this? Thank you, Jennifer. Much love and namaste to you all, of course. Looking forward to a peaceful meditation on Wednesday. Get myself back on a little bit more even keel. And take care, all of you. I love you all from my heart. I love every person on this planet. If I didn't give a rat's about everyone, I wouldn't bother. But I do. Why? Because I know that you're in me and I am in you, and we are all part of that same wondrous whole. Have a wonderful Sunday afternoon. I hope I've given you a few things to think about. Take care.